here in Auckland tonight as part of our global series of industry events where we tackle some of the biggest challenges operators are facing and hopefully uncover some of the opportunities for tomorrow. My name is Dan Stock. I am the Senior Communications Manager of Mr. Yum, and it is a real pleasure to be joined up here tonight by two leaders who are shaping the industry as we know it. To my right here, I have the founding editor of Broadsheet New Zealand, Rosie Herdman, and the general manager of Auckland's waterfront local, Wynyard Pavilion, Damien McDonald. And unfortunately, our third panellist tonight has been called off to a family emergency. Ro Parker from the Heki, who's no longer able to join us, so we send her and her family all the best. But we're going to have an amazing night anyway, talking to these two legends here. Please put your hands together and welcome our panellists.
Thank you.
Rosie, the media can seem quite baffling and mysterious to operators and those who don't work within it. So I'd like to start with you this evening. Can you tell us a little bit about Broadsheet New Zealand? Tell us a little bit about what you look for in stories and perhaps how people can bring their venues and their story to you.
Yeah, sure. Broadsheet, for those who don't know, was originally founded in Melbourne in 2009 by Nick Shelton. And it remains an independent publisher, so it's one of Australia's most successful and highly regarded cultural food publishers, platforms over there. So it's definitely really well known for food and restaurant coverage, cafes, bars, driving that conversation, but it's also a sort of wider cultural publication. Anything to do with culture, art, design, fashion, entertainment have always gone hand in hand with that sort of food and restaurant coverage. So anything that's driving the cultural conversation is what we cover. Broadsheet, something that's really important to us is journalistic rigor. So while we cover sort of lifestyle subjects, where to eat, what to do, we are very rigorous in the way that we do it. So we will always go to the place, we'll always talk to the person. The standards are very high in that regard. And so we just sort of prize ourselves on being super accurate and painting the best picture of things. So the launch into New Zealand, Broadsheet had been considering international expansion for a long time, and New Zealand seemed like the natural next step. So our first year, which we're nearly coming up to, has been underpinned by Tourism New Zealand, which was a really great partnership because it was initially talking to that Australian audience, encouraging people to come over here and showing them that, yes, Aotearoa has incredible mountains and scenery and all of that, but we also have world-class restaurants and bars and art scene and culture and really cool creative people doing interesting things. So that's part of my job it was initially talking to both sort of audiences, but then also building that New Zealand audience as well. So I guess in terms of like what we're looking for in terms of content, it's always about the story behind something. So I guess it's important to remember that you might not be the first person to do something, but as long as there's a story behind it, it could be maybe someone's recipes are all coming from their family, or something's opening in a place that is servicing an area that something like that hasn't been there before, or it's just thinking about the why and what the story is, and we'll always try and find that story. So Yeah, I would say it's definitely often about the new. Like, audiences, of course, love new things, new openings, and so do we. But also, it's important to celebrate places that have been around and doing great things for a long time. And yeah, talking about them in a different way if we can.
Yeah, amazing. You're like every journalist, but certainly the editor of Broadsheet, your inbox will be overflowing. What's some of the things that people should look out for if they want to pitch their story, if they've got a story that they think is worth Broadsheet's attention, your attention? What's going to jump out of at you from your inbox, and what are some no-nos?
Yeah, I guess it's worth remembering that a lot of editors' inboxes are overflowing. So if you're not responded to straight away, it doesn't hurt to follow up. Like, sometimes, don't go overboard, but like, what's that saying about like the squeakiest wheel? Sometimes things might get missed. We might be on deadline, or it's always worth giving a little nudge. I'd say if you're pitching, addressing it to the right person really helps. Like, sometimes you get an email and it's like, that's not my name and not the publication I work for. So, that's like...
a pretty big no-no, isn't it?
It's a pretty big no-no. I would say, like, maybe it just kind of conveys that the person isn't that detail-oriented. So, yeah, you just want to, like, check that. But, yeah, I would say... subject line is super important, like being super clear with specifics, like what exactly the email's about, and then just kind of, being really clear and specific, and having, again, that story or that point in your mind of what you're trying to tell us in as clear a way as possible, so that we can get all of the information that we need in order to determine whether it's going to be a good fit for Broadsheet.
Fantastic, great advice. Thanks for sharing that. Damo, we may as well tackle the elephant in the proverbial room straight away. Staffing is a real issue for the industry here in Auckland, but also globally. What have you done to sort of attract and retain talent, both front and back of house, in such a market, and how much does the culture that you've created at Wynyard play a part in that, in being able to do that?
Yeah, I think kind of a lot of hospitality venues have had a bit of a kick in the pants with this staff shortage, and certainly for us, I probably thought that we're doing the right thing by staff, and intention was always really, really good, but sometimes actions speak louder than words, and so it's been we've kind of re-looked at everything that we do in terms of attracting staff, but also retaining staff. In terms of retaining staff, for us, it's about that career progression and actually showing people that this can be a career for talented people that are already in your system. So we've done kind of quite a lot of things. We've started sharing our numbers with our team, which has been a really, really big game changer for us. So sort of open book management, treating people like the adults that they are. I think in the past, historically, we're also kind of, I certainly was really hiding numbers and whatever else. And so that step of sort of speaking to people on a management level and doing that and empowering people to understand what the numbers are and the business side of things has been really important for us for retaining staff. In terms of attracting staff, it's hard, right? I guess, that cultures and those changes are only just starting, so it's not necessarily something that's being spoken about all over the industry, and you're just getting people landing on your doorstep. But yeah, I think if we've found the things that we're doing right now are really resonating with the new people that we've got coming in. So really good inductions, sharing the numbers, and we had our staff party today out on the boat, which was a lot of fun. And same thing over the last year and COVID and whatever else, kind of been a bit remiss of that sort of stuff, and actually you really need that, and so that's super important as well, and just not forgetting about those things like that too.
Are you seeing a change in the expectations of staff? Twofold, post-COVID, but also a generational shift in terms of what the workers or your employees are expecting from a job, from an employer?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think, all the reading and all the books are all, people don't just want a paycheck, they want a purpose, and communicating that to the team is so important. I think you can't just get away with, here's your paycheck, see you later. It's got to be, you got to care about the person and care about the progression. I think that's definitely where we've all kind of got to go if we're looking at keeping really good staff. Totally.
This lack of staff, Rosie, and lack of experienced staff, we've spoken about often in this series from an operator's perspective, but keen to hear your perspective from the other side of the table, from as a food writer, as a reviewer of restaurants. What does it look like from your side?
Well, I guess firstly I have to clarify that we don't actually do restaurant reviews. The way that we work in terms of coverage is that while we do have that journalistic rigour, if we choose to cover something, it means that we consider it worthy from the outset. So, that's kind of the way we work. But I mean, in terms of I guess I can only speak from my personal experience, talking to a lot of operators. Like, I have spoken to people around the country who have flown staff in from overseas at, several $1,000s cost to them. So, yeah, it definitely seems like it's been tough from what I've heard from people. But yeah, I'm sure you might know more than me. Yeah.
As a just a general diner, what does the service level look like when you're out and about eating? Is it same as pre-COVID? Is it noticeable there's a lack of experienced staff, or is it good places trading through with service levels at that same level as before?
I think we're in, there's some really incredible service around town. Really noticeable. I think more and more it's cool to see places, even on social media, I don't know if you've noticed this, doing staff shout outs, and a lot of people will have a real iconic front of house person that everyone knows. So I think people are making those connections, and you do, I can think of several places that I go back to because I'm like, oh man, I love that guy, or that front of house person or that bartender, and they're dotted all over. So yeah, I think of course there's different levels, but there's some real standout service at the moment. Yeah.
Damo, have you had to go down the path of sort of starting to sponsor staff? Are you trying to do that? Have you got sponsor staff already, or is that something that you're looking at increasing now that borders are reopening and it's slightly easier to get people into the country?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess like any problem, there's it's having 5 solutions to it. Certainly sponsoring people. Yeah, I'm sure most people in the room now are immigration experts. And
how has that process been for you? Because I hear it's not easy.
You've got to upskill, right? Yeah, it's we kind of pride ourselves that we know it really well because of how much we've been doing it. But yeah, it's just another skill set that you have to have now. And so that's certainly sponsoring people is certainly one. I think we're really looking at, it's quite obvious that you're not sort of bringing in top end people all the time now. And so we're this year, because of the staff shortage, really looking at our internal training processes.
And is that to upskill your current staff? Is that the aim of that? Or?
I guess we, I guess in the past we've done that really hands-on. Hospo is so hands-on, right? Teaching generally, which is super time-consuming when you're short of staff already. New people coming in, it's just that's also not a great way to necessarily start your new role at a new venue. If everyone's short of time, so. we're really looking at how we can sort of like systemize procedures, put a lot of training online, and get people up, you know, that we can kind of hire anybody that's got the passion and get them up to a really good level relatively quickly. And that's a huge challenge. We certainly haven't answered that, but that's a focus for us this year, definitely.
And are you doing that internally? Is that mainly driven by yourself and your immediate team?
Yeah. So we've kind of we sat together as a management group and identified that's the key thing for us right now. And you know, through all this challenge, like you get better. We're training staff better, and we're setting up processes and standard operating procedures and all that sort of stuff. So it's difficult right now, but only good sort of comes from it. Like, you kind of just lean into it, and I think we're way better than we were pre-COVID, because I think we're in a little way, we're a little bit lazy, you know, like things were good and it was kind of rolling along, and now we're a little bit more conscious of everything.
Pre-COVID. All of that, though, is an added impost and cost to your cost of doing business, Damo. But controlling costs has obviously always been paramount, but probably even more so now in a era, environment of increasing inflation. What are some of your tactics that you're implementing in order to sort of keep a rein and keep an eye on costs? Because obviously that's a focus for everyone over the next 12, 18 months.
Yeah, 100%. For our business, we kind of talk pre-open book management and post. So that kind of sharing the numbers stuff that I talked about before, that's been the biggest impact on our bottom line, is because it's not just me, maybe one other manager and one other manager that knows about cost of goods, net profit and all that, and staff cost. And we kind of have a team that now maybe 15 to 20 people nearly that we can talk about those things to. And so straight away you've got more people involved, more people looking at those numbers. We're obviously big fans of loaded reports. So yeah, I think, you know, back at our old bar, you'd do the P&L 7 days after end of the month and kind of be like, oh, okay, that's what we did. And then we've moved to loaded, where it was cool. We're looking at it sort of weekly. And now we're putting in systems where prices change that day. Chef's notified it at 5 p.m. We're going down to a daily sort of level on it.
Yep.
And the only reason we can do that is because people know, our team know what we're talking about now. So that's been a game changer for us in terms of controlling costs.
Mm. How hard was it as an operator, as you say, you know, that it did take a change to have an open book policy, but how was that as an operator that, you know, was used to keeping things pretty close to your chest?
Yeah. I guess I was never taught any different, you know. That, you know, no other venue can know what we make. No one on our team can.
Has it been liberating as an operator for
also
you?
awesome.
Just as a person,
yeah, absolutely.
To share the burden a little bit.
Yeah. It moves from everything on 2 or 3 people to a team caring about it. Yeah. The other thing we've put in place is a performance incentive program. So when we hit the numbers, everyone knows the numbers that we're going for. When we hit those numbers, we share part of that profit back with the team. So that's the key thing that you need to do to get the full buy-in. But yeah, you know, when you've got when you've got the whole team sort of working towards the business numbers that you need for it to be sustainable, then it's incredibly liberating.
Yeah, fantastic. Talking about that's obviously the tools that you have at your disposal as an operator are really important and are evolving all the time. And you've been pretty progressive in your adoption of your tech suite that enables you to work better. What are some of your pieces of advice? Talk about your journey of sort of implementing some of those solutions and how that's helped you as a business.
I guess it's not about just adopting tech for tech's sake, which I think I've probably fallen into in the past. I think it has to be tech based on your principles and business model and what you want to give guests. So yeah, there's a group in the States, there's England, they're like, cool, yeah, tech's great, but only if it serves either our guests and improves their experience or our team. So I think it's not about just grabbing at every single tech thing that comes through, and then that can actually quite be, there's so much stuff out there, you're like, oh, I've got to keep across this, and then, oh, have I chosen the right one, and whatever else. So I think if you ground your tech decisions based on need and your vision and what you want to give guests, then you probably can't go wrong if you do it that way. Yeah.
And you've implemented order at table tech and been a big champion of it in your business. It's worked really well. What are some of the things you've learned on that journey, and for people who might be starting out on just evaluating just even that style of service and implementing that into their business?
Yeah. I think if we were a smaller business, it probably would have been smoother, but a big 40 plus staff or whatever, you've really got to get that change management right. You've really got to give the reasonings behind it, and you've personally obviously got to be really, really clear on it. I think, for us, it's about, we deeply think about the guest experience and all of that sort of stuff. So it's actually like, cool, how does tech help that? And it's not, certainly for Mr. Yum, it's not about like, oh, here's Mr. Yum, sort yourself out, we're going to save 3% on staff cost. It's about how does this add value? And so, cool, it's actually freeing, in theory what it does is free up our team's time to then go and recommend things and engage with the guest and all of that stuff. They don't have their head down in a computer typing and things. But we definitely haven't got that right yet, and new people come in over summer and we're still tweaking and making sure that it's getting across. So it's definitely not easy. You have to have conviction and sort of stay the course and know that it's definitely not going to be perfect. Like it's going to, I guess we've done it for a year and a half, I think now, and we're still, we're still tweaking it and trying to get it right. So, but I believe in the long-term thing, so it's worthwhile.
Yeah, great. Rosie, while engaging a PR agency can be useful for bigger hospitality groups, and they can probably wear that cost, or if you're launching a new venue, it's probably good to get sort of professionals on board. But many people don't have the budget to be able to hire or outsource that. They might want to do it themselves. Have you got any advice for people trying to do a little bit of their own PR? And what are some things that the media in general, you in particular, are looking for? What would a venue need to do in order to make themselves useful to the media and then hopefully get some coverage?
Well, first of all, I think it's actually it's a real asset to do your own PR. Like we love hearing from and interacting directly with owner operators. So that's a huge asset for me. Like if I'm talking directly to the owner, it's great. I think you do. People, especially if you've been in the industry for a long time, like you do have a lot to offer. You have your voice. You probably have a really good idea of what's going on in the wider industry. And that's, again, it's all leading that cultural conversation. So, I guess in terms of doing your own PR, things that are helpful, if you want, like we commission a lot of our own imagery, a majority of it, but I would say it's probably quite helpful to have just like a good sort of basic suite of your own images, like some nice venue shots, and then if you kind of change your menu, maybe seasonally or something, like if you want that sort of fast turnaround coverage, that's often really helpful for us. If we have lovely images to work with, that can be supplied. I think it is just worth striking up that conversation. Like even if you have noticed something in the wider industry, it could drive a feature that even if you are not the sole voice, like it might be you and a few other venues, that's still, driving the wider conversation.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's a really interesting point. People tend to forget about it, and because everyone thinks that their story, their business, everything is the most important, which is fine. But like, not everything is a standalone story. So people shouldn't be disappointed if they reach out and their story becomes part of something larger.
Totally.
Like that's still a great result.
Arguably it's, if it's like something that is really overarching, then that's amazing. Like, there are so many different ways that we cover stuff. And I guess, on Broadsheet New Zealand specifically, like, what I'm always looking for is texture. So that will be something new and of the moment, mixed in with a longer form feature that's kind of more timeless on something or somewhere cool, or maybe it's like a classic institution or a place that's really important to a particular part of the diaspora somewhere. It doesn't always have to be this new thing is happening. It's like there are so many different ways that we can cover stuff. So if you are doing your own PR, it is always just worth reaching out. Yeah, and it's definitely an asset to have that direct conversation for us, because things often happen in a quicker and more genuine way sometimes.
Yeah. I was going to say, as a bar owner, that's pretty refreshing. Like, I think it's kind of become cool. Get a PR agency, new opening, the end, and that's it. So that's a cool.
Yeah, like. It's not always like, yes, I was actually having this conversation the other day with someone who has a restaurant here and has a restaurant in Europe, and he was saying in France a new place opens and everyone waits to see whether it's good before they go, so it's actually like quieter when it opens. But I guess in New Zealand the new hot place opens and everyone's there, with a shot, which is great, and that obviously does really well for us as well. But there's anything from a fine diner that's been around for a long time to like a burger joint to a bar to a cafe that has been a neighbourhood favourite. Like, there are so many different ways of talking about things that don't just have to be this new thing has opened or
That's great. Obviously, though, being part of that cultural conversation, Broadsheet is on point with keeping abreast of that. So what about some of the social media trends that are going on? Should venue owners be across TikTok? Should they be putting their dishes up on there? Which of the platforms are important today? I mean, obviously we all know Instagram and how powerful that has been for the industry, but where to from here, and what are some of those sort of aesthetic trends that you're seeing?
Well, it's tough, right? Because I feel like with Facebook especially, like, you're just at the whim of the algorithm, kind of. Like, if you got on that like a few years ago, it was almost just like effortless. But now, especially from the media kind of standpoint, I feel like, Meta and stuff doesn't really support media outlets in that way. But in terms of like social media for businesses, I feel like, with TikTok, I mean, definitely, like, we're definitely dabbling, and like dabble for sure. It's these platforms, like, I feel like they really do come and go, so it's like, it's important not to put all of your eggs in one basket.
It's like dependent on your demographic as well, right? Like,
totally.
If your demographic is on TikTok, be on TikTok. If it's not, maybe it doesn't matter so much.
And you can't deny, I guess it's also, you can't deny that some places have really blown up on TikTok, right? But is that like desirable? Like, what do you think?
I think it's totally demographic based, right? Yeah, talk to your people in the place that they want to be talked to. Probably a good segue into sort of EDM and that sort of communication. I've always been like, Facebook, Instagram, and for whatever reason, I don't know, it was like, EDMs are never opened and whatever else, and we've kind of come full circle on that because of the database that we've got from Mr. Yum. And just how we can actually use it now. So especially for When You're Up to a Billion, we're like something sort of for everyone. We're pretty pretty broad, sort of do late night stuff and breakfast and parties and kids meals. So now that we can be like, cool, these 1,000 people on our database have ordered a kids meal, I'm going to talk to them about $5 kids meal Sunday. These guys have ordered beers, I'm going to talk to them about our new rotating tap beer, because obviously the tap beer person probably is put off by all these kids running around on a Sunday. So it's been a bit of a game changer for us. And I certainly don't use it as much as I should in terms of breaking that down. But when you can start getting those key sort of demographics and really know
targeted.
Yeah, it's unreal. It's awesome. Yeah.
While you're not using it as much as you could, and you can go down that rabbit hole, how easy has it been to sort of get your head around and start dabbling in it and seeing results? It's been a pretty quick turnaround from effort to reward.
Yeah, well, we're 23,000 people in our database, which is pretty mind blowing. It's just time poor trying to do everything, but again, it's a focus for me this year is like actually making the most of that 23,000 people, and you can. It's pretty cool that you can chuck up a Res Diary link into your CRM or vouchers or whatever it is, and see 50 people have booked for the All Blacks from that EDM. That's probably the thing that's like, hey, this is awesome. Like, I've got to do this more. What am I doing?
Isn't it?
Yeah, really satisfying.
So direct.
Yeah.
So, talking about that, you've got to have things to email your database. How do you go about sort of thinking about the consumer events that you put on Damo, and what's been successful in the past? What are some of the things that you're sort of planning to experiment with this year?
We used to own a bar in Grey Lynn, like a really good little local neighbourhood bar called Pocket Bar and Kitchen, and it was my wife and I. And in terms of coming up with events, it was pretty much just what we wanted. So we were too busy to have a dog, and so we did dog days, and there was 50 dogs on a Sunday, and one of the biggest lunchtime spends. Helen couldn't do Pilates, and so we did Pinot and Pilates, and that took off. So I think, especially if you're in your demographic, something that you think's cool, other people are generally going to think it. And there's that experiential thing is just so important now, right? Like there's going out for a beer, you kind of sometimes have to add more to it. So certainly for us at Pocket, that was if that's sort of like a comedy night or whatever else, if that broke even, that was our marketing, that was our community piece, that's what built love, and was super successful and really fun, and you really connect with your guest. I found we've done a little bit of that at Wynyard. That large scale, it's always easier when it's smaller, and bring it into a large scale, and doing that. But certainly things that we've done comedy nights there, and that's gone super well. So I think it translates to small or big venues 100%.
We are almost out of time, but I did want to touch on, before we finish up, Rosie, the cultural conversation, you're seeing things happening in Australia because Broadsheet is established there. You're covering all of New Zealand, which is like no small task.
Oh, yeah.
But what are some of the sort of overarching themes or trends or dishes that you're seeing pop up that you think we'll be seeing more of in 2023 that people in the room should be maybe keeping an eye on and having a chat with their chef and or bartender about getting on their menu?
Yeah, I guess in like a not so much like dish related, but kind of in like a wider sense. There's just so much amazing stuff happening in the suburbs. Like a lot of the sort of top new openings of the last few months in the last year, I reckon, were in Auckland sort of wider suburbs, like the North Shore or like a destination place, out west. So that's kind of a trend, that these cool like neighbourhood places. In terms of like specific dishes and things like that, I feel like aperitifs are really having a moment. Like vermouth is like very much kind of on the rise, like that sort of pre-dinner afternoon, like Italian vibe. Like, you know, everyone knows Aperol Spritz and all of that, but it's kind of evolving into, that more like aperitif area. And then I feel like I'm seeing like a lot of cacio e pepe, like riffs, like cacio e pepe, what is it, tteokbokki, and there's another of my favourite places that does like an umame pepe. So I don't know, if someone wants to come up with another riff on cacio e pepe, I will probably try it. They seem to be very popular.
Very delicious.
Yeah, very delicious. Yeah.
And no end in sight to the no alcohol movement. I mean, that's been the biggest story in probably the last 2 years in the industry.
Yeah.
No signs of slowing.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I can kind of, like, speaking from personal experience, ever since I had COVID for the first time last year, really held off for so long and then it caught up to me. But ever since then, I haven't really been very good with alcohol. And so I have kind of been noticing the low no alcohol thing, just in particular because I'm sort of after that. But I feel like it's definitely, places have full like zero alcohol pages in their drinks menu these days. It's not just like orange juice or Sprite. I think it is like, it's really important for people to feel like if I want to go to a pub or something and have a zero alcohol beer, that's cool because it makes me feel like I'm not, standing up from everyone else.
It's really normalised the like booze isn't needing to be part of every interaction, which is a great thing more broadly.
Totally. And I mean, like, I guess in Australia and stuff like they are quite far ahead of us in that regard. Like there are zero alcohol bars that have opened over there. We recently had our first zero alcohol bottle store that opened here, which is quite cool. It's definitely on the rise. And I think, it'll just become more so. It's a huge, huge industry. Yeah.
So keep an eye on that. Keep that part of the drinks list growing.
Yeah.
Finally, I will ask both of you before we finish up. Covered lots of things that's happening in the industry, a lot of challenges that the industry still, no doubt, will face over the next 12, 24 months. If there's just one thing you could ask a government, whether it's the local government here in Auckland or the federal government, to do to help the industry, what would it be? Damo, I'll start with you.
I quite like the idea of funding towards these sort of tech solutions for hospitality. I think it kind of takes away that little bit of barrier for entry and being able to try things. I guess our big thing at the moment is that training piece, and I'd love to. I just don't think the staff that are coming out of necessarily training institutes are kind of ready for the industry. So certainly bringing that training either internally or through funding, or I think that would be a really good thing for our industry. Yeah.
Rosie, what could they do for you and Broadsheet?
I mean, I suppose, owners and operators are probably the best people to answer this question. As I said, like through conversations that I've had, it seems like, the staffing thing is still difficult. So, if something can be done about that. But from my own personal experience, it's probably operators that are best equipped to answer that.
It's been fantastic to hear from both of you and really to get a snapshot of where we are today, and really appreciate you both sharing your insight and inspiration and being so honest and candid with us tonight. So please put your hands together and thank Rosie and Damo for